thank you all so much for being here. I am totally grateful. We're going to do it this way, and then you can see me upright instead of on my side. Hey, Myrna, good to see ya. Got my old friends here. So, I really want to welcome everyone here, and I will give you everything I can during this short period of time in questions about spirituality and healing and just about anything that I can try to answer, that's appropriate. And that's what this is about, so let's boogie. My name is Mark Ehrlichs, and hi, Kathy Hines. Good to see you. Yay. Yes, Myrna, good to see you too. And we'll have a few more people come on board as they do. And this will be also recorded for later. Anyone who wants to see it or misses it, it'll be available. We do have, we decided to put on an internet live. Hey, Diane, good to see you. Good to see you. We've decided to put on a live internet apprentice training in April. And so please do take advantage of that. It'll change your life. And that's coming up. The information on it will be coming up. Lynn will post some of the information up there, and the the other information will be just when you call to find out. So please, Lynn, put some of that information up. It'll be a 3-day apprentice training on the internet. And so please take advantage of that if you feel that you have a calling for healing and it's within you. And I believe that most people do have a calling for it. Some people don't, which is fine. And it's not required that they be here. But as you do, I highly recommend it. You can't hear me, Leo? Let me make sure. Can everyone hear me? Can you hear me now, Leo? Is it coming through? I'll wait for the response. So please do, for those that can hear me, there is definitely the apprentice training come up. It's a 3 full-dayer. Take advantage of that. And save the date, please. It's going to be April 16th, 17th, and 18th. I believe it's a Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. Leo, check your sound, or you'll be able to go to the computer later and listen to everything being said. So, my friend Michelle Sutton, yay! She wrote a question, and I want to, thank you, Lynn. I appreciate that. She wrote a question. Any tips on how to get out of the way of healing received so as not to slip into the old ways of thinking or feeling? Well, yes. And I love that question, Michelle. Generally, and with many as well, it's not only with you, it's with a lot of people, and sometimes I find myself in a way as well. And it's where people get somewhat stuck in that frame where they feel, what should I be feeling, or what should I be experiencing, or what should be happening, or whatever, or do I need to do something? And the idea is, and even when I pray for people, say if it's a call or absentee prayer or whatever, or an appointment, the idea in prayer, or when my hands are hands are on a person, they don't know what to expect, and hopefully not. It's what I'm doing and what is being transmitted, or how the healing is affecting them or what is being enmeshed within them. There's no concept that we can conjure in our heads that you know, that's going to be healthy or for taking charge. And it's letting and allowing the godliness within to take over and, you know, to do it. I'm there. Say if you're working with someone, you're there just to allow yourself to be a vehicle for that to happen through. The person, say like myself, who's giving the healing, the spiritual healing, is going to be pretty much out of the way. Hi, Lori, how you doing? And when you're out of the way, you're allowing something to move through you, and you're conscious of that to some degree. That's what's important. And it's going to create a perfection greater than what your perfection should be. We can have a concept of what a perfection could be. Say if a person has a cut finger, and the finger is, you know, a little bit of a slice, and it's bleeding. We can put our hand over it, and well, let me tell you a quick story. I was at a friend's place in Washington, in Seattle area, and everyone's cooking dinner and scurrying around, and I'm on the side watching all these chefs at work. And so the daughter was startled. A knife fell and sliced her thigh a little bit, and it was oozing blood, and people were rushing over there, and I rushed over there, and I put my hand on it, and my first reaction was to, you know, say, okay, God, you know, take over. But when I say take over, I mean I'm watching a perfection happen inside my head where there's nothing but skin, no blood, no nothing, just skin and intermeshing, weaving together, the tissues weaving together, and where there was no more flaw in the skin. And so someone was rushing to get a cold paper towel, wet paper towel, and to put it on the knee. And then she came, and I moved my hand, and it was stopped. There was no more blood, no more nothing. And then the idea, that's right, Myrna, is to be out of the way, totally, and allowing this to happen. But I lifted my hand, and I had the cut on my hand, and it didn't hurt me or anything. And then I just put my hand on it, and it took care of it. And so, which made it easier, and for everyone else in mind there. Yeah, but they looked at it and they were startled, and I just thought it was fascinating. That hadn't happened in a long, long time. And so we have the ability to get out of the way and allow this greater divinity to come through. And it's a part of our nature. Some people are here to experience it, and some people are not. And some people are here just to experience someone like us, and which I'll teach you how to do. And so just get out of the way. Let the godliness happen. Let the divinity happen. Let the Creator happen through us. We're a part of it anyway. It's a natural part of us. This being true, then we're being open, and we're wondering, and we're accepting without predetermining anything or analyzing anything or prejudging anything. We're not critiquing nothing. We're totally out of the way, and we're trusting, and we're accepting. And that's what we're going to. No different than, say, in an emergent situation. Say, okay, God, I'm helpless. What are you going to do about this? We're allowing that godliness to come in. What are you going to do about it, God? And or divinity or creator or nameless one, whatever you want to call it. And then we get to see these things manifest forth from us, through us. And it affects other people. And so we're getting out of the way. And it's giving as much room as possible to something greater to take over and be more in charge. Great question. I love that, Michelle. That's pretty much how we get out of the way, by trusting through our knowing and accepting. That's what healing is, knowing and accepting. And so, in any case, I hope that answers your question, Michelle. And then we have a question from Diane. And Diane is saying, I am a believer in healing. Totally. And I know she is too. And I did have a healing with you when my back popped and you didn't even touch it at a recent healing circle. It was like my spine rewired and balance came back. Thank you. But the severe pain is stuck in my leg, causing me to limp badly and not be able to walk well. I know you say it's never the end of the story, and that we keep healing, but we don't know, but we don't. What can we do? We keep healing, but when we don't, what can I do? I am very surprised I am in this condition. I'm wondering if it is fear that keeps people down. We don't think about it much, but walking is such a gift. Yeah, it is. Maybe other people are stuck too, so I just thought I would bring it up. Well, I love the question. I think it's excellent, matter of fact. And I hope you're here. I didn't even see if you were or not, but you'll see this later if you aren't. And your situation has nothing to do with fear. I just really want to express that. So please don't embed that in your mind at all. Please do not. Simply, some people get the same scenario as you experienced. Other people have too, so don't worry about that. And in my experiences, the body sometimes has to adjust to the initial healing. The body sometimes has to adjust to the initial healing that was fulfilled. So we're taking care of a particular situation, and then something else is going to follow that at times. A real cause is going to get to. And so at least that's what I found in my experiences. And it has to be fulfilled. Then either they come into the healing circle again or to see me in the near future with ladder development. And I can work on that if they come back, which is almost like saying there's a next step. And we took care of the first one, now the body has to catch up with it. And now we can work with the second one. That's why sometimes I tell people, not everyone by any means, sometimes it's just one time I see them and that's it. And then immediately or later or years later or 25 or 30 years later, they'll tell me, oh my God, I never wrote you to say thank you, for whatever happened. But other times like this, I suggest that people come to see me again, and I recommend it at times. And it's strengthening what's been done, not only in their body or their biology, neurology, or skeletal or whatever, but it's also strengthening in the head, what's been done, and as far as the concepts and perceptions. And so everything helps, if we continue with say another session or whatever, if that should be the case. And for some, it's done the first time, as I said, which is fine. And I won't tell someone, oh, they have to see me 14 times for this to happen, or 37 times in 6 weeks, or whatever, or every other day. That's kind of bogus on my stuff. And and I'll teach a lot of this stuff when you do the apprentice, trainings and things, and other classes. So if you can see me in the near future, Diane, then I'll work with this again. If you can go to another circle, I would love to. And once again, one dynamic might be taken care of and the other shows itself, which is a normal course of events at times. Not to put myself in the same category, even with the healings of Jesus, though, that Jesus had done, similar situations happened. If you reread the New Testament, you'll see that he worked with people again. Even the first, most immediate, came up with, say, the person that was blind. Initially, they saw, the spiritual trees and stuff, and the walking trees. And hi, Diane, good to see you. We just talked about your question. And then Jesus had to work with him again. There were several other situations as well, as you reread. So, Lori, please keep in mind, one of my teachings, my perspectives, and it's just mine, one of my perspectives is that there's no such thing as blockages. If we had a blockage in our arm, the rest of the arm would shrivel up from lack of life force and fall off. If we had a blockage in the heart, we'd be dead. I call them log jams. And log jams where there's still life force flowing through, plenty of it. But they're little log jams that create situations within us. And, it affects our bodies over either immediately or over time. A log jam is created with a traumatic event, a shock trauma, as I refer to it. And we can hear something or see something or experience something at a really early age, so the age of 7, that creates an impression within us where the life force is log jammed a little bit, where it created an impression where it's no longer that openness. Now something new is there that's creating a different direction in life. And those log jams affect us 5 years later, 20 years later, create habits, create situations in our lives that we follow through with those. And we have emotional disturbance, or we create, not we create, but we have other dynamics in our body that start to develop. And no different than the story I always tell, and I might have told this the last time too, so it would be a repeat of this. Say someone came to the healing circle, this 37 or 42-year-old lady, and she says, I still have asthma in my life, and I said, well, let me work with you. So she's in the center circle, my hands are top of her head, and I'm saying to myself, okay, help me understand and to help this person with the situation. So as I'm scanning down, I finally, at the age of 7, and I teach the ages in the apprentice trainings, of how to determine when something might have happened in their life. And it's usually pretty correct. Matter of fact, it's always correct, to my understanding. But as I scanned down to the age of 7, uh, then felt all this energetic emanating forth from what I refer to as the morphic fields, the fields of information. And I kept saying, what is this? What is this? What is this? I wonder. And I kept thinking and wondering. And the deeper I got, then I saw a little vision within myself. And it was her uncle on top of her at the age of 7, and he was tickling her, trying to get a reaction out of her, and he was acting like a nut. And so she, in turn, didn't like the tickling. It hurt her. And no matter what she did or said, she couldn't get him off. He just wanted his reaction. And so she decided to go hold her breath really tight to stop the discomfort of the tickle. And that's when the asthma developed. And I said, I got it. And she said, what? And everyone around is laughing. And I told her the story of her uncle. She says, I remember that. But from then on, she told me that she hadn't had a reoccurrence of her asthma. So the shock traumas, everything in our perception that changes the way we're thinking from one moment to the next moment is what I refer to as a shock trauma. It doesn't have to be anything major, but it didn't get to go through its healing crisis. It was a disturbance within her. So those things will happen. And I hope that truly makes sense. In any case, Kathy, my friend, we see a bookcase full of books behind you, and you said you read a lot, you read a lot when you were in seclusion in the order in Boston. Well, before and after that, I read a lot too. But I did read a lot during that time. I was in seclusion in the order, maybe, I don't know, anything from 7 to 11 months in seclusion and silence, which was a wonderful, wonderful experience. Do you have any favorite books or authors you still really like? And would you share a few of those with us? Thank you, Mark. Every time I pick up a new book and author, I think they are truly wonderful, it seems. Yes, I'm sure there's a ton of just wonderful, wonderful books out there. Tons. Laughingly, I say, well, most of the wonderful books I have back there are from Gabram, and like the Prophet, etc. And what else? The Song of Hiawatha. I loved that. And several of Louis L'Amour books. I thought those were awesome. And they take the mind, your mind out of the world while you're reading these things. And there's lots and lots of books, that we can have according to our tastes. Mysteries, dramas, whatever. I think they're great. Westerns, you name it. Poetry. It takes our mind away from the world in a lot of these things. Hi, Mac. Welcome. And I have several of them back there besides the Louis L'Amour and the Song of Hiawatha and the Gabram books. I have a lot of them there that are on anatomy and physiology, and some are, I have a lot of plant books, really, and a couple bird books and some dictionaries. Why more than one, I don't know. And some are on esoterica, which I don't share the names or the information about them. I just don't go too much there anymore unless it's in a workshop and someone wants to try to understand something or a question here. And I have several of my old order books from my order. And one whole bookcase is just totally dedicated to my various workshops from over the many, many years. Actually, and to be very candid, none of them have I read in over 25 years, which is quite a long time, really. And I've just carried them wherever I've lived. And I'll unpack them, I'll put them up on the shelves, and I let them look good. Like I also pretend that I'm going to read them someday, or reread them, I should say, from all those years ago. And I don't. I haven't yet. I hope that sometime in the future I'll have some time to start doing that. Even the books I wrote, I haven't even reread since even the Nightingale Conant one, the audio CD. It has not been opened since I did the audio CD at the studios. So, all right, that's so much for my books. Diane wrote, I love listening to your teachings, Mark, and thank you for doing these. My pleasure, my honor. I'm just sharing my experiences with y'all. And here's one from Diane Joyner, my friend. From a young age, I've always known things or sensed things without knowing how I know them. Things have happened in my dream days and weeks before they've actually happened in real life. Yay! Well, to interject there, hey Bobby, good to see you. And Maureen, good to see you, Maureen Dillman. Sometimes I contribute these things as they happen to a person that has had a lonely childhood. Regardless of how outwardly active the friendships were or they thought they were, I still contributed to a lonely childhood. I was of a similar nature. That was my experience as well. And you may or may not recognize that, which is fine. Regardless how active you were in childhood, it's still, I feel that way. And so this to me represents how deeply and close we perceive. This represents how deeply and close we perceive the availability of the divinity within, if that makes sense. And listen to this again if you can. And in that time back then, and even now in our lives, we're actually awkwardly searching for that source within that's speaking to us and trying to show us that it's there. And so we'll have these visions, we'll have these things, these perceptions that are a part of us, waiting to be more fully realized and eventually actualized within us. And she also writes, the past 2 years have delivered many profound spiritual experiences where I know Source is communicating with me. Yes. The feeling is deep, and I'm not sure how to interpret what comes to me a lot of the time. I'll be in a place where I am feeling in flow and deeply connected, and then an emergency will interrupt my flow. And my response is, with the sense of feelings you're describing, we can learn to stop ourselves and wonder about them. We have the ability to do that. We can stop ourselves and wonder about them. As we do, more is shown and understood from the source. That's what's important. As we stop to wonder, understandings come to us, ideas come to us, a knowing comes to us, and intuition exponentiates from within us. It grows as we purposefully stop to understand and wonder. And it's through that wanting to understand and wondering and really contemplating on that, that it does come forth even greater. It's almost as though we're opening our perceptions to another consciousness, or even opening a window to the sunlight upon awakening in the morning, like waking up to a new day. The emergencies will always be there. They're a part of this world. And we live in this world as well. And as you become more of the other world of contemplation and wondering, the emergencies will still be there, but they'll be less disruptive. Totally, they'll be just less disruptive in our life. And we'll be able to handle them more consciously than we know how to now, if that makes sense. We'll always have emergencies. I even see emergencies happening in my life around me at times, but they don't take me away from my life. It's almost as though we're able to handle them in a more real way and immediate way. And then we go on with our life again, without a lot of the drama and trauma which distracts us. There's so my perception of that. And she goes on to write, I have close family that's been diagnosed with life-threatening illnesses. And so there have been many trips to the emergency room and extended hospital stays. I have several questions and would be grateful for any you choose to include in your session. How do you know when it is a situation in your dreams? How can you nurture and cultivate the divine guidance? I answered that a little bit earlier, that you said it made sense to. You recognize that. How do you keep the feeling of deep connectedness even when life happens? And my response is, every time you have these experiences, embellish yourself in them versus just acknowledging that you're having the dreams or you're having guidance or intuition. Embellish in them. Go into them even more so. Hi, Tamara. And so, you know, the experiences are there to be acknowledged and just enjoy them. Go into them and wonder about them. Then you'll find that they'll happen. Well, when you acknowledge them even more so, you're opening a door. And it's not just acknowledging them, it's embellishing yourself in them and wondering about them. Then you'll find yourself opening a doorway for more opens a little bit more. Yes. And it is accessing the availability of the divinity within. You're right. You're right. That's what happens purposefully. So, awesome. Great, great, great. All right. Then I got another one. Let's see what this is. With so many words getting tossed around, such as enlightenment. Oh, this is from Anonymous. Though I know who it is. They didn't want me to mention the name. That's fine. With so many words getting tossed around, such as enlightenment, metaphysical, consciousness, realms, divine, and cosmic energy, Do you have any advice for someone new to learning about spiritual practices, me, to help settle my overwhelming confusion? And any daily practice you suggest? Thanks, Anonymous, aka the name. P.S. What do you call a bear with no teeth? A gummy bear. That was good. Yeah. So it's almost as good as the fish that was swimming around in the water, and he was just looking all over the place, and then all of a sudden he hits this wall, and then he said, "Damn." Okay, so in any case, so much for the gummy bear one. All right, good questions. And with the spirituality, I know, wasn't that funny, Tamara? Yeah. So in any case, good questions again. Most of what you read or hear is someone else's experience, and that has been added to, and other people take on stories about other people's experiences and write on them, etc., etc. And I prefer my own stories and my own experience, and I pretty much don't follow anyone else's story. I try not to, unless it's a scientific fact that, and even they are just, in a sense, theories for the time. So, I don't go along with other people's stuff. I just don't. I don't follow other people. Just my own preference. For me, I'm too busy trying to learn about my stuff. And even in the workshops and the apprentice training, if you've done the apprentice training once, you'll see that if you do it again, it's different. There's some basic concepts, but they're different every single time. And because I've grown, I'm sharing more information with you on my perceptions of what healing is and what I've grown into. And it just doesn't stop. I prefer it that way, because there's really the idea is not to have one way and that's it. Then we're kind of putting God in a box, and God does not fit in a box. It's always expanding, and therefore we're always expanding. The divinity is always growing, and that's a part of life. And we're blending our physical life with the spiritual life, which creates the true spiritual life. And that's our place. We're living on this orb we call Earth, with a consciousness within us that wants to keep developing and growing and growing. And that's what our striving really is about, that we're resistant to on this orb. And it's finding an opening for it. And that's what everyone is here for, is finding that opening and growing within that, to make us better within ourselves, more cognizant, more aware. And so I say, okay, God, here's a situation. Set up my day for me. It's learning to trust. That's where the spirituality, the true spirituality comes in, is learning to trust. And then we're starting to perceive something from within ourselves. And that's what turns us spiritual on this orb that we live on this planet that we live on. And seeing what's presented before us. Nothing is going to be presented before us that isn't real for us, that we can't handle. Nothing. If it was, it wouldn't be presented to us. That's what I believe. Or if we're in a situation saying, okay, God, how are you going to handle this one? What are you going to do about it? And if we trust enough, we can go our way. Understandings come to us, ideas, a correct reaction for us is going to happen on how we can handle a situation. And all the terminologies everyone has of the spiritualities, that's their thing. And I just go along with my thing, and I prefer not to take on other people's ideologies, ideations, and stuff like that, their concepts. Um, uh, Sometimes the concepts are archaic, and so I don't say to God, cleanse me, because then I'm asking for a cleansing. That's destructive, and we'll go through a cleansing, or to make me pure. I don't go for that. It's not in my life. So we don't have to be pure. We're not living a life where we're expected to be pure by that divinity. But we are growing. That's what matters. And we are evolving. That's what matters. And in that growth and evolving, we get to perceive that divinity within even more. That's spirituality, the real spirituality of finding that godliness within. So doing this helps, I hope, to take the pressure off of your shoulders and allow the divinity to take over in your life, in all of our lives, as we watch amazing manifestations happen around us. That's what I call kosher. Dorothea, my friend, I don't know if you're here right now, but she wrote, "Can you heal a developmental disability from birth? It causes the person to not understand emotions in self or others. And then in turn, they have no close relationships, girlfriends, boyfriends, only with family members." I totally hear you. I've seen this many a time. And many of these things happen at the time of birth, in the birthing process. A lot of these things happen. I don't know if they still use it, but in the old days, they used to use clamps to take the child out. Or they would pull too hard, or they would squeeze the cranial, the skull, and distort it without even knowing it. Or sometimes the doctors would know it, and they say, "Oh, the kid will grow out of it." But it creates blood clots. It creates emotional, mental difficulties. It creates all kinds of things. It's not all the time that developmental disabilities will happen from birthing, or not birthing, but through doing these things, but many a time it does. Oftentimes, children need helmets to bring their cranial mechanism back if they go that route. Or they can find, say, medical intervention to help manipulate the skull back when they're young enough and the skull plates are soft enough. And I've worked with that a few times. I don't manipulate anything, but I've seen where put my hands on someone's head and the skull will soak up the consciousness, and I know that something is happening, and in turn the skull's memory of what it was born from will reshape. It'll reshape itself to where it's supposed to be, just through putting my hands on. I've seen that happen a couple times in children over the many years. And these things happen at time of birth quite often, not all the time. Then we or other medical interventions can help. I believe that with all my heart. And sometimes the child is born because that way, with the mental difficulties, because the soul, it dictates it. And please keep that in mind. The soul is not cold-hearted, but the soul is very indifferent, and it works with this. The soul carries information from other times and other places, if you're an advocate of reincarnation. But it's what I accept as well. The soul will carry information from other times and other places, and it's a great way each birth to work something out of maybe several times or situations. And which brings up another point. Many years ago, I was taught by one of my teachers that the soul will carry something with it for up to 7 times. It might be 5 times, 4 times, 8 times, for around 7 times. And we have a chance to work something out. And there's times, though, that we have an opportunity to, but we're always facing something to work out by either experiencing it or getting over it. By either experiencing it or getting over it. And so there's other times that the person will be experiencing it and they need to complete it. And if they don't after so many times, so many existences, it's washed away from them and they don't have to worry about it ever again. After 5, 6, 7, 8 times, even if they don't get it, they'll never have to worry about it again. And then we go on to working with something else or other things. Every lifetime, we're here to work something out. Please understand that. Everything that we're facing that's a conflict in our life or feeling awkward to us, we're working it out. That's why it's being presented to us. And it wouldn't be presented to us unless we individually can handle it. Even though we think, oh, it's too much, I can't do this. You can. And the idea is to step into it, to face it as much as we can. And then we find, oftentimes, if we're in dire need of in situations, there's others around us. I call them helpers in our life, if that makes sense. So, all right. Does everyone understand that to some degree? Please let me know. And type in there, pound hell yes, or something. Please. All right. Then, all right, continuing here. Dorothea, many times these things happen at the time of birth, as I mentioned, and medical intervention is really, really needed. And so developmental disabilities come with us. All right, thanks for the hell yes. The hashtag hell yes. Cool. All right. And let's see here. Lindsay, my friend, how can we have a full-time awareness of the divine? And how can we make our partnership with God consistent rather than yo-yoing between that and lack thinking or separate? Great question. Well, as far as, how can we have the full-time awareness of the divine? I say we develop it. And it can't be a full-time awareness unless we're literally living in a cave on some mountain away from all the civilization, and we have someone catering to us and taking care of us at every moment. If we had the full-time awareness of that spirituality, we would not be here on earth. And we have a place to be here. The soul needs to be to work these things out in our lives. Very important. With our spiritual exercises and our practices and becoming more conscious, more purposefully. That's what's important for us. We're blending then the spiritual and the physical together, and we're living a more fulfilled life. It's the most important to take care of ourselves, to eat fairly decently, whatever we consider decent, and whatever diet you're on, or food groups. It's to, do some form of exercise. It's to, who knows what. And, breathing, fairly correctly, making sure you're taking deep breaths in. Everything matters. Everything is helpful. It's also living mentally clean to some degree, as far as, when this is stuff I teach in the apprentice training, but with the consciousness, it depending upon how deeply we accept our consciousness of, if someone has a cold and sneezes on us, we know that we're not going to get sick. And it's accepting that. Because all healing is knowing and accepting. There's nothing else. And even when we put our hands on someone, knowing and accepting, these things matter. These things are important. That's what brings us into and accentuates the spiritual practices. So, all right. And that's taking care of ourselves too. And say when we bump our arm on something, or we fall on our arm and we injure it, and when we're on the ground saying, ow, that hurts, it's watching that consciousness. It's learning to watch the consciousness as like the destructive aspect of it. Watch it dissipate. Watch it go forth from you, knowing that the old man or the old woman upstairs, God, is taking care of it. It's coming in as this is leaving. It's being conscious of that. That there's a light within you that's mending or blending the cells together where they might have been torn or injured or bruised. And it's watching these things happen through your knowing. And the more vigilant you are in catching yourself not knowing, then you become more conscious in knowing. Because you're turning the coin over from destructive to constructive. I hope that makes sense with everyone. So, let me see here. And so it's a spiritual exercise of being conscious and taking care of yourself. And the last question, Sue wants to know, is there a difference of flow or energy or purpose in putting one hand on a person, on an affected area, or both hands? And my response is, not really. People see me do this all the time. And I can put one hand or both, but it's being conscious of the energetics and intent that moves through you at that moment. And I know that one hand is just going to be effective as both hands. Light is coming forth. The hands of God are coming forth. It's not your hands that matter. So I keep that in mind. And sometimes we don't even show the healing because mentally and or emotionally we don't know what to do or how to go on in life without the dilemma. So the healings, no matter what happens, for some people is not going to happen because the people need the dilemma. So if they don't feel the energies or experience them right away or later, then they might have been healed, but it's not going to show, in other words. Because the drama and the trauma are very much part of the lives that they rely upon. Maybe the infliction, in other words, is in some sense their security blanket in life. I hope that answers that, Sue. All right. I am so grateful for y'all being here, and please do look forward and prepare for the April apprentice training. It's going to be 3 full days online, and it will be recorded as well. So if you do sign up for it and you aren't able to watch it, then you will be able to see it later at say if it's a more convenient time, whatever. I thank you so much, and I'm so looking forward to your questions for next week. And I will definitely give my heart in trying to answer them. And please, the contact, you got the contact information, Lynn. If you wish to contact me for a personal appointment, or if you want to know about the workshop, or you can contact Lynn about the workshop. And I know that in May or June, the future workshops will be going up in price. So please do take advantage of this. If you want information on the apprentice training, please do ask and sign up. They're amazing, and they're really going to pound you with information and change your life. That's what they're for. Blessings to you, and thank you so much. You too, Leo. Good to see you, and God bless you.